Episode titles starting with the letter A to E. Episode titles starting with the letter F to J.
Episode titles starting with the letter K to O.
Episode titles starting with the letter P to T.
Episode titles starting with the letter U to Z.
Video.
What does a French horn and your small intestine have in common? If you were to uncoil all the tubing in a French horn, you'd have a horn that was as long as your small intestine, more than 20 feet long.
Georges-Pierre Seurat spent his winters in Paris, where he'd work on one big painting all season long. Then, when summer came, he'd head to the beach, where he'd paint a lot of smaller paintings, like the scene he painted in The Shore of Bas-Boutin en Fleurs.
Back.
When Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart wrote his horn concertos, the French horn hadn't been invented yet. And since the horns in Mozart's days didn't have any valves, the only way to change the note was for the player to change the shape of his mouth.
How would we get around without our bones to support our bodies? Ask a sea anemone. They have no skeleton. While they spend most of their life attached to rocks and coral, they can slowly slide from place to place if they need to get somewhere.
Are pufferfish full of hot air? When puffers or blowfish blow themselves up, they're actually filling their bodies with water, not air. Ring around the planet.
Quincy and the
Ring around the planet. Saturn is one of the largest planets in the galaxy. But would you believe that it's also the lightest? That's because Saturn is mostly made up of gas. In fact, you can't stand on Saturn because there's no real surface to step on.
Back. Composer Antonin Dvorak's Symphony No. 9 is also called the New World Symphony. Maybe that's why astronaut Neil Armstrong brought a recording of it into space for the first moon landing in 1969. Back.
You won't find Gustav Klimt's painting, Tree of Life, hanging in any museum. That's because it's actually painted on the dining room wall of a palace in Belgium.
The rocks floating around in space called asteroids aren't round. Most asteroids are shaped like ovals and dumbbells.
Being weightless in space isn't the only thing that happens to your body when there's no gravity. Astronauts actually grow a couple of inches taller while they're in space. Gold and silver isn't just for jewelry. If you look closely at the painting Tree of Life, you'll see that Gustav Klimt used pieces of thin foil made of real gold and silver in his art.
Composer Antonin Dvorak didn't just love to write music. He was also a big fan of trains, and he spent hours and hours watching them come and go at the railroad station.
Even though Saturn's rings look like they're solid circles, a closer look shows that they're really made up of big and small chunks of ice floating around the planet.
The blue whale is the largest animal on the planet. In fact, when a blue whale is born, it weighs 50 tons. That's as heavy as 25 cars. Can polar bears be invisible? No, but their fur can be. A polar bear's fur is hollow and see-through. The fur only looks white when sunlight hits it.
Don't give a seal earrings for her birthday because she won't have anywhere to wear them. Most seals don't have any ears on the outside of their body. Even so, seals can still hear as well as we can when they're on land, and even better when they're underwater.
Back.
Even though most of Johann Sebastian Bach's music was written to be played in churches, his orchestral suite number 2 in B minor is music to dance and celebrate to.
Back. Many of the totem poles of the Pacific Northwest are carved by Native Americans out of giant cedar trees. The word totem means symbol, and each family is represented by a different symbol on the totem pole. The Thar Desert is sometimes called the Great Indian Desert, and it covers nearly 20,000 square miles in India and Pakistan. That's almost as big as the state of West Virginia. Back.
Giraffes aren't the only ones who eat food from the branches of trees. Elephants use their trunks to grab a hold of branches and shake food loose. If they're really hungry, they'll even pull the whole tree down.
Back.
The Thar Desert is the 7th largest desert in the world, and while the temperature can be frigid in the winter, it gets hotter than 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer.
Back.
Pirate's treasure.